Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. We've covered this week's Marvel books as well as our one entry this week from Boom Studios, and now it's on to this week's DC titles. Kicking things off with Batman number 122. This is part 2 of Shadow War, where we left off in Shadow War Alpha. Apparently, Deathstroke the Terminator had assassinated Ra's al Ghul as Ra's was in the process of turning himself in. But things are not what they seem, as the whole time that all that was going on, Deathstroke was training with Respawn. But Talia al Ghul has summoned forth various agents of the League of Assassins and given them the order to kill Deathstroke. While obviously Batman is investigating the crime scene because, well, Batman. So we pick up the remains of a bombed out city. An unseen figure swears vengeance on the remains of the city. At the scene of Ra's assassination in Washington, Batman and DEO director Cameron Chase are basically going over the evidence, trying to see what's what. One point that is brought up is the fact that Talia was wounded, not killed, but wounded. Batman pointing out that if Deathstroke Batman operating under the assumption that it was actually Deathstroke, basically says that Deathstroke is a good enough shot that if he wanted Talia dead, she would have been killed. Perhaps setting up the possibility for Batman, at least, that maybe Talia hired Deathstroke to assassinate her father. But Chase and Batman also find a tunnel that was recently dug. It was used as an escape for Deathstroke. Back in Deathstroke Inc., the Secret Society are dealing with Talia's various assassins. Who are all being led by Angel Breaker. As the fight continues, however, another operative, Detonator, takes out the building as Deathstroke and Respawn escape. Elsewhere, Robin goes to speak with Ravager, and they leave with the intent of killing Deathstroke. At the Demon Palace in Nepal, Batman breaks in to talk to Talia, and to a degree at least make the accusation that perhaps she hired Deathstroke to kill her father. She denies this and also explains that she is sick and that she doesn't trust the Lazarus pits. And the A story ends with Batman and Talia sharing a kiss in the palace. Our B story, entitled Secret Meetings. Commissioner Gordon explains to Batman at the Bat Signal one night that apparently there's a contract out on Robin. Turns out that the contract has been picked up by none other than Deathstroke. Before he takes a shot at Robin, however, Batman stops him, and the two have their first ever fight. Batman wanted to know who hired Deathstroke. Deathstroke says in a creepy voice who wouldn't stop laughing, as it seems Deathstroke has been infected with some Joker toxin. And that is where the issue ends. Good issue. I like the Beast Mode was quite nice, and I was also kind of in the camp of clearly Talia hired the Deathstroke impersonator to take out Raish, but I'm honestly starting to think there was quite possibly Lex and the Legion of Doom who arranged this, given the way the last issue of Deathstroke Incorporated ended. But anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Batman Beyond Neo Year #1. So back in Batman Urban Legends #7, we had a prologue to this. New Year's Eve, Bruce Wayne dies, and if I remember correctly, on the way where the Bat computer had become sentient, and it took over Gotham, or a program within the Bat computer had gained sentience and took over Gotham, and was making things even harder for Terry McGinnis. But the city's awake, and the only thing that's standing in its way is Batman. But so Terry is keeping a journal on paper. Harder for it to be corrupted. Going over, night by night. But there's a big party at Wayne Powers, and so after picking the pocket of an invited guest, Terry uses the invitation. Apparently, the new CEO is a former drug lord from Bloodhaven. Donovan Lumos. And so Terry and Donovan meet, with Donovan being quite impressed that Terry was there, but Terry slips a bug on Lumos and overhears him talking about an upcoming drug shipment at the docks. Batman goes to tell Commissioner Barbara Gordon, and she tells him she's retiring. Batman goes to deal with the drug shipment and ends up fighting an assailant who refers to himself as being Gotham's Sword. An agent, basically someone that's, working for the AI, running the Gotham AI, and it even blows up the top few floors of a building, just to make a point, burying Terry in the rubble. And that is where the issue ends. I was intrigued with this from the Urban Legends story last year, but this will definitely be interesting, and it's nice to have a good jumping on point for Batman Beyond. I was a fan of the cartoon. I actually didn't catch it really in first run. It was years later that I did finally catch at least a good chunk of it, um, including the after the fact finale. Um, there was I want to say the conclusion of season 2 of Justice League Unlimited. But yeah, I was actually really quite pleased when DC basically folded the Batman, folded the Terry McGinnis character into the overall, the primary DC universe. Even if it is, one of the possible future timelines. But yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got One Star Squadron number 5. Where we left off here, Red Tornado had been named manager and had also been told that the Heroes for You company was being sold to another company, and then the building is set on fire. So the next day, Metropolis PD are talking with members of Heroes for You when Power Girl, having been fired the previous day, shows up and pick up some personal stuff. Red Tornado and Power Girl are both questioned. Power Girl being the prime suspect. The meeting is being held at a restaurant, discussing everything. Power Girl tries to make everyone see that it was not her, and Red Tornado says he believes her, but the reason he knows is that he knows she doesn't do it is kind of based on the idea of once a hero, always a hero. And apparently days earlier, Red Tornado checked in on Gangbuster paying his rent. Apparently he's a quiet, ideal tenant, never leaves, sits there all day. And the landlord at Dolphin Cove claims to have seen him before, and it scares him. But Power Girl sees a building on fire in Metropolis and flies to save the people inside. Red Tornado tells his wife about what happened, and goes back to the Heroes for You site when Minuteman shows up. Explaining that he did it. The gig he'd been given, or he was specially asked for, went to check it out. It turned out that the company that bought Heroes for You is a shell company owned by Lex Luthor, and he wanted Minuteman to be the manager and his man on the inside, paying him in Miraclo. But Minuteman was ashamed and came back and set the building on fire. And that's when Red Tornado drops a bombshell on him. Gangbuster was inside the building when it burned. He'd had one of his episodes. He was hiding somewhere safe. And when he was inside when the building caught fire. Minuteman didn't know and just on turning himself in, but Red Tornado decides to do something. Decides to help Minuteman. Pulls out the money he was given by the former owners, $50,000 and gives it to Minuteman, tells him to, disappear and start a new life. And that is where the issue ends. Oof. Yeah, that the tongue-in-cheek tone is pretty much gone from this book. I mean, it's still good. Just wow, it was, oof, yeah, tonal shift like that, and but well done, I have to say. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Batman: Killing Time, #2. Where we left off, Catwoman and the Riddler had masterminded a heist that included Killer Croc. They had Killer Croc rob a bank, rob one branch of the Gotham Bank, while the Riddler robbed the other branch. It had seemingly been set up by Penguin. However, when Riddler beat Penguin to death, half to death with one of his umbrellas, well, it was very clearly not. So this issue basically goes between various points in time, including ancient Greece, the death of King Pentheus at the hands of the Maenads, including one of which is his mother. Then we've got Catwoman and Riddler hiding out of the safe house, awaiting their buyer on what it was they stole. Batman trying to get answers. Beating on Croc. Croc's ex-girlfriend buys herself some jewelry using her own credit card. So there's a trail. Apparently, a few months previously, the Joker told Catwoman something. He had used a experimental truth serum on Batman to see what fun things Batman might know. We don't find out what Batman said, but yeah. At Arkham, I guess Batman questioned Killer Croc. Catwoman and Riddler things are a little tense between them, mainly just because Catwoman doesn't like waiting, and she's honestly worried that Riddler, left some vague, inane clue like he always does, but he swears he didn't. Batman talks to Croc's girlfriend. Buyer is finally arrived. We see more of the planning. And in a stage for both Riddler and Catwoman at Arkham, Riddler explained the whole heist to her, while Catwoman's like, okay, sure, whatever. But we also see them meeting with their funder. Though we don't see who it is exactly that is funding things. It is, however, implied that whoever it is someone who's been around for a very long time. Batman also questions people at the Iceberg Lounge, and including and we also see the death of one of the bartenders from when Riddler and Penguin were discussing the heist. Croc's girlfriend goes to buy some more jewelry. Batman discovers the Penguin in the hospital under the alias Ben Gwyn. And apparently Riddler did leave a clue in the bruises on Penguin. Morse code. An address. An address that Batman is currently en route to, as Riddler and Catwoman's buyer arrives. And the issue ends kind of going back to the beginning of the what led to the death of King Pentheus, or him going into the woods to deal with the Menads. And that is where the issue, and that's it for Killing Time number 2. I am really enjoying this mini. I find it interesting that it does seem to kind of play off of, with it being written by Tom King, it's interesting that it somewhat plays off of some of the things set up in Batman Catwoman, namely that Catwoman and Joker seem to also be friends. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Earth Prime Batwoman, number 1. So, it looks like DC is intending to do comics, at least one-shots based on characters from the various CW shows. The story in this is set after season 3, episode 7 of Batwoman. At a high school party, an outcast gets bullied by some of the jocks, falling into a puddle of mud. But it turns out that the mud is Clayface mud. Batwoman goes to investigate. So apparently, for those who haven't been watching Batwoman, which actually does include me, I haven't watched any of the CW shows in years, but a bunch of Batman's rogue trophies got stolen, and they kind of turned people into that particular rogue. A friend of Batwoman's became Poison Ivy. Clayface Mud makes his kid Clayface. But Batwoman does what she can to deal with him, but however he does manage to escape. Her and Luke Fox discuss the whole thing. But Batwoman has to head to Wayne Tower. She's meeting with Lena Luthor, who wants to do business with Wayne Industries. But she explains to Batwoman that it's more she wants to do business with her, not so much her brother, who's taken over Wayne Industries. But Batwoman gets some Mr. Freeze serum to use on Clayface, giving some of it as well to Lena Luthor, who needs it for as a stabilizing agent for a long-term power source in National City. At a Gotham High soccer game, Clayface shows up and ends up attacking the players on the field. Batwoman learns a little bit about Crisis, and at least manages to freeze Clayface before taking him to Arkham. Apparently, Nora Freeze's old cell has been repurposed. Batwoman makes a friend with Lena Luthor. It seems that things are her friend who's become the new Poison Ivy seems to be embracing the role quite a bit. At Arkham, Clayface is unfrozen, though therapy isn't working. But someone unfreezes him and creates a portal allowing Clayface to escape. And that is where the issue ends. And it appears to be something that will be continued. So I guess we'll be continuing to read. We'll be picking this one up on the regular. And our last book for the week is something that's going to be very short to go through. Flashpoint, Batman, Night of Vengeance. So this is a single volume reprinting of the Flashpoint, Batman, Night of Vengeance miniseries. It retells the origin of the Flashpoint Batman, and also sees his final, as well as the origin of the Flashpoint Joker, and shows the final confrontation between the two. But yeah, Thomas Wayne runs a casino and whatnot, and various other businesses in town, with some assistance from Oswald Cobblepot. But him and Jim Gordon run Gotham Security, privatized police force. Turns out Judge Harvey Dent's kids have been kidnapped, seemingly by the Joker. Batman does what he can to track leads, as does Gordon. Turns out that the kids are being held at Wayne Manor, and we get the reveal that the Flashpoint Joker is in fact Martha Wayne. And Jim Gordon accidentally shoots one of the Dent children, who's been made to look like Joker. No lighting, so. However, Joker slits his throat, and then Batman shows up and deals with to fight Joker, informing her that there's a world where there's a way he can potentially fix things, so that instead of Bruce being killed in the alleyway, it was them who were. And Martha asks him if, what becomes of Bruce? Is he happy? And Thomas tells her that he follows in his father's footsteps, and which initially causes Martha to think, oh, he becomes a doctor. But then Thomas says, no. Leading to Martha jumping into the entrance to the cave from behind Wayne Manor, dying upon landing. To be fair, I actually didn't even realize, I didn't know this was actually a reprint until reading it earlier. I probably wouldn't have picked it up if I had, but yeah, there's an upcoming Flashpoint sequel coming up called Flashpoint Beyond, so at least get the origin story of the Flashpoint Batman once again back out there. It should be. There have been some preview pages from Flashpoint Beyond that have been popping up in some of the DC books. It seems as though a couple characters from Doomsday Clock, Mime and Marionette, will also be involved in the story. So, that should be interesting. But that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.